This episode of Pop Apologist is brought to you by Booking.com. Whether you want to earn more or grow a full-on hosting business, check out Booking.com today. For the bookings you've dreamed of, list your property on Booking.com. Hi, everyone. Okay, we are so sorry about the audio quality on today's episode. It's unacceptable. We feel so bad. Our mics did not work, and there was just no way to salvage it. Our editors tried their best. The sound is coming from our cameras, but it's just barely intelligible. We actually sound a little drunk. Anyway, long story short, we are releasing this episode as a bonus episode for everyone to listen to, so you can still get your, Wednesday Pop Apologist fix with excellent audio quality. I love this episode. It's an episode we recorded with our dad. It's very soulful, it's very sweet, and it's all about, if you are going through a family law matter or just like how to have a great marriage, questions about our family. It's a really, really wonderful episode. We always intended for this to be released to the public at some point, but we've just been kind of keeping it on ice. We originally released it for premium. So anyway, we're so excited for you guys to hear this episode and to, have everyone hear more from our dad, who we just love so much and is truly a star. When we first had him on the pod, people begged for him to come back. So happy this one's being released today. And then thank you so much for your patience with the poor audio quality from the earlier episode and for bearing with us. Love you guys.
Which daughter were you most confident in when she flew the nest?
I think all of you guys have such great talents. I wasn't that confident in any of you.
Well, we are back with another episode with our dear father, back by popular demand. The people wanted to see you back on the podcast, and here you are. Thank you.
I'm very glad to be here with you girls. Always thrilled as always.
It's honestly a little bit jarring, like what an impact last episode made, Dad. A few people emailed us and they wanted to tell us how great the episode was.
Nobody emails us. Let me just say that.
No one emails. That actually never happened. So we got someone sending us a straight email, so many responses in the DMs. I don't know, Dad, are you thinking of podcasting, giving up law? I think you could be a star.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's joy to be here. And I think it's just the contrast. I've heard a lot of your other guests and they kind of have a kind of a shtick, and I have my own. So.
Wow, Dad, the contrast. Yeah, I think people are.
I've never been on mushrooms.
Oh my gosh.
And it shows you're still thinking clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Truly.
Thought A leads to thought B leads to thought C, which we appreciate.
Well, I've heard it's a wonderful experience for those who would
partake.
Have mushrooms, but it's never going to be me. That's for sure.
Okay. Well, I'm glad. That was actually the first question we were going to ask you, so I'm glad that's out of the way.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to some other hard-hitting questions now that we've cleared that up. I mean, any drugs you would try?
Well, there's a few I'm trying already. We won't
Okay.
But love is the drug. My love for your mother is my drug.
Oh,
yeah, that's
wow.
true.
Very sweet.
Oh my gosh. Deborah is in studio, everyone. She's off camera today. She's off mic as well, but she is in the studio. So if we make references to a gorgeous brunette matriarch of the Bledsoe home, you'll know why. But we're going to get into the questions for the patriarch of the home. You know what? This is perfect. Let's lead off with a softball. What is your favorite thing about Deb?
Well, I think that just her friendship all these years.
Oh.
It's wonderful to, we've been together 42 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Over 42 years now.
Crazy.
That's even a better record than my Orange Theory record.
Oh.
And the companionship is the thing. That is your favorite thing.
It is.
Oh,
Wow.
That's
It
really
is.
sweet.
I've rarely had to travel. We've been together a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very sweet.
Okay, staying in the familial domestic realm, someone wants to know best tips to raise confident, successful children. They must have seen Chanler's LinkedIn.
I have to say, I think that a lot of things we could say out there. I have to say, your mother is probably the biggest factor, I think, in all of that. She is a very sharp person, and she does not miss much, as you girls well know.
Mom, you can't do the cue cards, okay? You can't feed dad lines. No, I'm just kidding.
I'd like to think that your sharpness is genetic, and I think your mother has wonderful social skills.
Yeah.
And I think that hopefully I have some brain power also. Brain power, horsepower is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you don't
And
want
whether you're talking about a podcast, a law firm, anything, it's how much horsepower can you generate?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't want the mushrooms to interfere with that as
With
well.
your horsepower. Yeah, absolutely not.
Okay, so let's bounce back and forth. I'm
Okay.
just glad you're sitting back, Chan. You don't need the questions.
I don't
filled
need
out.
them. I'm relaxed.
I'll
I'm here.
just-
I'm here. It's a family affair.
Why don't just allow me to handle it?
I didn't want to bring my iPad over here.
You
Okay.
can be the co-guest with Dad. I'll ask you some questions. Seriously, put it
Okay,
down.
great.
Okay, so question for you, Dad. Someone wants to
Okay, I'm
know.
going to say one more thing about the other question. Came to my mind.
Okay.
So here's the reality. That back in my day, we used to have Ann Landers. That was the gossip columnist, like Dear Abby or whatever.
Okay.
Not gossip, but it was a bit more the advice columns. And so then they'd write in, and there was this story about how I had the meanest mother, and she wouldn't let me do all these things that other kids got to do. And then the point of it was she was really glad in the end that she had a mean mother. And I think the point is that what I would say is that your mom has really been into your lives, and she's been into it. I mean, very frankly, I came home probably just like today, kind of tired, and I just kind of sit there, read my book or whatever, just kind of listen in the background. But your mom has been very involved, and I think that that's a real, anybody who wants to raise successful kids, you got to be involved in their life.
Yeah.
You know what's going on. And I think you've all been able to develop your talents. I think we had expectations of you. I will have to say this of you. I think one of the things you really have to do is read to your kids. Reading to your kids is so important because I know all of you grew up as readers. And I
Yeah.
think that opens up. I don't think any of us were great mathematicians. I don't think we were going to be Elon Musk. But we have there's a lot of verbal skills you get from reading and understanding the English language.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
No, that's so true. And I think double tapping on that a little bit, you and mom had expectations of us. And I think it can be easier to not have expectations and to let things slide because you don't want to deal with the resistance teenagers will provide when they have to do chores or have to abide by certain standards. And so it takes more effort to be that kind of parent.
another thing I could mention is I have to say, it just comes to mind. We raised you girls in a faith. And I think the community raising the child or whatever that saying is, I think there's a lot of good that comes from raising your kids with a set of values. You went to church generally pretty much every week.
Yeah.
You had other kids living, at least the other kids living those standards or taught those things. You were taught from an early age what was acceptable, what was not acceptable. And I think that does translate,
Yeah.
having that moral compass.
Yeah.
I think we were surrounded by a lot of other positive adult examples via like our religion or whatnot. And I think that really, it was important. And I think we saw like people who modeled like a great life.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about Mormonism is it really forces children to interact with adults that are not their parents on a very regular basis, right? You have all these like meetings and it forces you to be more social and more socially graceful than I think you would be if you're really just interacting with your teacher and your parents and saying hi to your friends' parents.
Yeah.
And I think that there's an ability a lot of Mormon kids have to really look an adult in the eye, say hello, ask questions, and not to say that other children do not, but I think when you're raised in an environment where you're forced to be an active member of a community, it's a really good thing, regardless of denomination, creed.
Yeah. I mean,
Country.
I was just going to say, Lauren had a little like housewarming thing on Saturday before we came out here. And the majority of the people there were like Mormon or were still. And anyway, like the majority of people started like helping clean up at the end of the night. And somebody made the joke, like, how can you tell like everybody was or is Mormon? And it's because people, you know how to like be a good, like responsible person. You know how to like take care of things. And like one value there was just like being helpful, like realizing how to be helpful and like having that modeled and feeling comfortable being helpful, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing, I don't think we say typically Mormon any longer. I think it's better to say Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or you can say LDS.
Yeah.
LDS is
I think that we kind of getting away from
Right.
that.
But colloquially, it's like known as Mormonism. But yeah, that's not the official name. But anyway.
Okay, into the matter at hand, into the law of it all. We'll hit some other family questions and we'll sprinkle those in. But for anyone listening who did not catch our first interview with our dad is an esteemed family law attorney. How long have you been practicing family law, Dad?
About 33 years.
Okay. So has domain expertise. And one of the things that I think a way we can generate value for our listeners is answering some of their questions, things they're facing. This was an interesting question. They said, can the court step in if they think the parents have named a child something outrageous?
Never seen that before.
Really?
Never seen
Yeah.
that.
In fact, yeah, I can't even say the name, but I had one case where the kid had a very funny name, sort of like a drug connotation.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they shake their head. You can tell it's a little troubling to saddle a little kid with some label that's pejorative.
Yeah.
But it's not. But yeah, I've never seen where the judge, I think it's a bad reflection on the parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but the court's not going to step in.
Yeah.
Okay. For a little LSD. Okay. Let's
Nice.
Okay. Well, crack a few jokes yourself, Jan. Carry the load. Why don't you?
Here's a question for you, Dad. Are you ready? Can I go after my ex for lying about his income in order to pay less child support? So it sounds like this person's ex tried to make their income seem smaller in order to pay less child support.
So then if they find out later if the person lied, can they go after them? Whether within reasonable time periods, although actually there is not really in theory, a time limitation on fraud actions. But if somebody's misrepresenting, you find out later they misrepresented, you can go back and ask the court to revisit it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's best to go in as soon as possible. And frankly, some people would say family court is liar's court. You get people who like to lie. You get attorneys who like to lie. I'm going to say one thing. If you're in a divorce and you find that your attorney is gaslighting the court and lying to the court, probably a good idea to get rid of that attorney because that same person will lie to you.
Interesting.
So, people have to put down their income under penalty of perjury. I was just in on something like that today, accusing somebody of telling some big lies.
Do you have to show your tax returns, or do you just literally write it in and then?
The tax return you file is what we would say is the presumptively correct income. But we all know about tax returns.
Can you?
There's a lot of, in fact, in family court, they actually have an accountant typically go through and do what they call a income available for support analysis. And then they take the tax return and then they add back a bunch of, or certain categories of things like depreciation or other things, because the person could claim they only have $10,000 a month or whatever, some amount of money like that, when their cash flow is actually 2 or 3 times that much. So that's typically what that happens.
And how often do people get away with that?
A lot.
A lot.
At least temporarily, they do.
Yeah.
Temporarily. Okay. Interesting.
Can you speak more to the attorneys lying to the court or lying to the judge like that? Can you give us an example of a situation?
Okay, here's one for you. They just basically, it's a matter of they say, well, we're ready for trial. We've been ready for so long. And we know they're not. But they're trying to get the court to rush the case along.
Got it.
And I think that's lying, gaslighting.
Yeah.
People, like we talked about last time, narcissistic people hire narcissistic attorneys.
My favorite beverage in this world is the Clear Protein by Clean Simple Eats. Clean Simple Eats has mastered the protein game. I grab 2 to 3 clear proteins from my fridge per day to bolster my protein intake by 20 grams a can. It's 90 calories, 20 grams of clean grass-fed protein. I'm not getting my blender dirty. I'm not messing up my kitchen. It is fast, it is convenient. I grab one and I go. I cannot recommend Clear Protein enough. This product has truly changed my life. But if you're a traditional protein shake person, I cannot recommend the Simply Vanilla or Chocolate Brownie Batter more. I love their protein powders. You just mix them with water or with milk and they taste like melted ice cream. There is not a better tasting protein powder than Clean Simple Eats. We all need more protein. We need to build muscle. We need to get stronger. Adequate protein intake is truly the key to maintaining vigorous health. And Clean Simple Eats has made it easier than ever. Go to cleansimpleeats.com and use code POPAPOLOGIST for 10% off. Try the Clear Protein. Try the Simply Vanilla. It's delicious. cleansimpleeats.com, code POPAPOLOGIST for 10% off. That's cleansimpleeats.com, code POPAPOLOGIST for 10% off. If you are looking to substitute your nightly or every few nights glass of wine with just something a little bit better for you, I cannot recommend an Early Bird CBD gummy enough. I absolutely love half a gummy if I just want to melt into my pillow, if I want to enjoy a show a little more. I take one before a meal and I swear the food tastes better.
Early Bird CBD, they have mastered the incredible formula of 12.5 milligrams CBD and 2.5 milligrams THC. It's just this perfect, gorgeous amount that feels so good. I absolutely love Early Bird CBD. If I wake up in the middle of the night with anxiety, I am absolutely taking half an Early Bird CBD and I am melting back into my pillow. Go to earlybirdcbd.com, use code POPAPOLOGIST for 20% off. And this is something I'll say. A bottle of Early Bird CBD gummies, they last a really long time. And with our code POPAPOLOGIST, you'll get 20% off. earlybirdcbd.com, code POPAPOLOGIST.
I've got another question for you. Like, what if a person's not in Orange County and they can't retain you? What should a person look for in a divorce attorney? Because I think you might be attracted to the more narcissistic personalities because they might seem like bruisers or charming people who are going to win your case. But what would you say to look for?
Look for a specialist in the field. Look for somebody who has a lot of good reviews.
Yeah.
Go in and talk to them. Go with your gut. We have a saying, in fact, in business, hire slow, fire fast.
Mm-hmm.
If you find this attorney or their staff, if you get a bad sense about what they're doing, you've got to fire them. You've got to talk to them or get rid of them. This process is already expensive and difficult enough without a bad relationship with your attorney, without trusting your attorney.
Yeah.
How expensive does that get though if that means you need to hire a new attorney and you basically have to pay them to get educated on your case? Like how can that be really expensive?
It can be.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, having the wrong attorney is a bad idea.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the way the judge, if you ever go to court with your attorney, when they look at the way they present themselves, look at the way they talk, look at the way the judge seems to interact with them. If the judge is sarcastic with them or condescending or whatever, it's probably that may be that the judge doesn't think too much of your attorney or believes your attorney is a liar. I've had judges tell me, I know she's lying.
Really?
They your attorney's reputation goes with them for a long time.
Yeah.
So a judge will say that from the bench?
In effect, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, actually, she said, I've known Mrs. So-and-so. I almost said it. I've known Mrs. So-and-so for many years.
Yeah.
And I know what I'm going to get.
Wow. It's pretty crazy.
That is crazy. Someone wants to know, what should I do if my spouse has blocked me from all financial accounts?
Probably talk to a lawyer.
Yeah. Okay. And
I mean,
what can be done?
Divide the property.
Right.
Go to court, get a support award.
So you need to get away to get a support order.
And by the way, back to your earlier point, when divorces start out, we go to court. You're trying to, typically the people split up. So the woman is often the gatekeeper with regard to the kids. The man is often the gatekeeper with regard to the money.
Yeah.
So the woman's looking to get money and the man's looking to see the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's probably a generalization, but in any event, a temporary order is made. And so you may feel like your spouse is lying about their income. And so that temporary order by nature is temporary. It can be changed retroactively all the way back. So if they find that husband's making more money than he said, then they can go back and say, well, your support should have been higher. You owe a spouse X more dollars per month. And then
back pay?
Yeah.
Wow.
They'll say, well, the support should have been $6,000 a month. It was only $4,000. So now you owe these months at the higher rate.
Yeah.
And if they find somebody's lying, they can make them pay attorney fees. So, and then on the other side, oftentimes the mother is going to come in and say, well, I'm the primary caretaker of the kids, and therefore they should be with me most of the time. And he works, all he does is work. Well, yeah, he's got to support the family, but all he does is work. And so then they may start out giving him a little bit, but what you often find is at the end of these divorces, the kids are shared equally, half and half, and the supported spouse is getting more money. But the supported spouse is also probably working if they weren't before.
At the end of almost every divorce.
That's right.
Okay.
Unless you're so independent, you're going to be working or expected to work or imputed the income that you should be making if you choose not to work.
What about if you have, I'm always so curious about this. There's a woman on Real Housewives of Orange County. I'm not sure if you caught this season. Her name is Jen.
Never. There was one of those people that came down to our Costco, though.
Oh, really?
And this is kind of funny. On Saturday morning, there was a big line of people waiting to meet them, and they were in Costco. They were like
Do you know who it
I
was?
don't recall.
Like a celebrity or a real housewife?
I steered clear of it. I didn't look for them.
So you didn't
It
catch.
was one. No, it was one of the real. I think it was one of the
Okay.
Real Housewives.
Well, thanks for
Okay.
getting the tea. And
Yeah,
So
literally.
don't-
It's not like your daughters have a podcast
Yeah.
about pop culture or housewives or anything like
Mhm.
that.
Thanks for helping
It's
us
not a
support-
family business,
Yeah.
I guess.
Okay, well,
You were talking about Jen.
yes, thank you. Back to Jen. So she has 5 kids and she's, late 40s.
Right.
Okay, if you've never been in the workforce and you have 5 children, yes, a lot of them are teenagers, but still, that requires a lot of
Right.
work. Does the court expect her to get a job?
Once the kids get to be a certain age, yes.
Like what age?
What is that age?
In school,
Like 5.
5 or 6 or whatever. I mean,
Wow.
even before that,
It's
the state is very liberal. They take the kids to daycare and they are working.
Everyone needs to get a job, basically.
That's right.
Wow.
Interesting.
So good lesson there. Like I've told you girls, get a skill and just assume you're going to be supporting yourself someday.
Yeah.
So get a skill.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Know you can go out and make a living, have that confidence where maybe you don't stay in a bad relationship because you think, I can go out and do something, I can make a living.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's also a great example for your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Dang, that's so interesting. So California is a no-fault state, and
Right.
there's a lot of talk about that. My question is, does bad behavior ever play into a divorce settlement, like an affair, given that it's no fault? Like, does any of that ever play into it, or does it not matter at all?
Very rarely does it play in because, like I think I said last time, the court assumes everybody's having an affair or
Yeah.
done something that caused the divorce. The court rarely knows it caused the divorce.
Okay.
I mean, affairs are pretty common.
Yeah.
There was even a story about a judge and a lawyer that were having an affair.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
And, judges, by the time they get to a certain, they're not that good looking. But, but I thought this one judge wasn't bad looking for a judge.
So it made sense that they were having an
I
affair.
don't know. It was she, but apparently they were. So,
Oh, wait, are you talking about Tom Girardi? Wasn't he having an affair with a judge?
I don't know. That sounds familiar.
that sounds
but
familiar.
Wait, Tom
right?
was? Like
Yeah.
the Erica Jane's Tom?
Tom Girardi was, I believe, Google this while I continue the conversation. But I do believe that Tom Girardi was having an affair with like a blonde Circuit of Appeals judge in
Mhm.
LA. Chan's going to corroborate
Judges
that.
judges are human. There was one judge in Orange County, and when a really pretty woman would come into the courtroom, he would light up like a Christmas tree. You could just tell he was just
Human nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lauren, you're right. Justice, should I say her name?
Sure.
Justice Trisha A. Bigelow returned numerous gifts she received from Tom Girardi. Bigelow had been in a relationship with Girardi during his marriage. But yeah, that's her.
Okay.
Well, that-
Judges
that-
are,
yeah.
They have
make
the,
mistakes.
It's so true.
And
Okay.
you hope that wasn't, or he wasn't appearing in front of her,
Yeah.
getting wonderful rulings or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she could
Advantageous rulings
She could definitely be like disbarred if that happened, right?
could be problematic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should go back to raising great kids.
Oh yeah. Let's
Someone
talk
wants
about
to wants to talk about also specifically raising girls.
Again, I can look over your mom. I mean, I was raised in a family of, my mom had 10 children in 14 years. I was raised in a family of 9 living children, 8 of whom were boys. So I didn't really know too much about girls. And then I went from that to being a father of 5 daughters for a long, long time
Mm-hmm.
before your brother came along.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I learned an awful lot. Probably a lot of rough edges got chipped off me from all the female attention and all that, all the hurt feelings that and all that. I learned how to communicate with the female gender.
An important lesson, in life.
It's yeah. Sorry, Mom didn't teach you that earlier.
There's something about walking on eggshells.
Yeah, a lot of hormones, a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
a lot of there can be a little bit of fighting.
And your mother would do the. I think I was always kind of amazed how strict she was with you guys. Like she would say, I mean, it'd be a Saturday morning. She'd say, "We want to eat breakfast." And she'd say, "Well, do your morning 5s."
Yeah,
And you had to do those morning 5s. And I think she held you guys to a very straight course. It's
that
back in the day
phrase
when she
sends
was able
chills.
to, she did, and you deviated.
Yeah.
But even you
Uh,
just saying that phrase, she held you to a very straight course. I just remember hearing that so many times from my childhood. Like, gotta hold him to a straight course. Ugh.
got to do the morning 5s.
Or hit the ground running.
Or hit the ground
Yeah.
running.
I remember, I think you said more than once, Dad, we know you love us so much, but you're not really into us, and that's true because I would come home pretty tired and
Yeah.
and I didn't, by that time, Mother had already had your report of your day at school and all that. But I was one night actually just on a Saturday, and your mom and Courtney were just having a great time somehow. And then all of a sudden the conversation got a little bit heated. I could tell. And I was generally tuned out watching TV, but next thing I hear a voice from your mother who says to me, "Are you going to let her talk to me like that?"
Oh, man.
So I sprang into action and I said, "Courtney, don't you ever talk to your mother like that." And
Yeah.
jumped on her. And then next thing I know, she's upset with me, she's been at Courtney, and we're kind of in the rough. And then your mom and Courtney are back to normal. Everything's fine with them. And
Now you're in
I
a
got
fight
a
with
kid who's
Courtney.
mad at me, and I don't even know what she said.
That's so
And,
funny.
it's just kind of the typical of what might happen
Yeah.
in our house. Courtney was never one to hold back what she would say. So
It's true. Oh, man. What other fights can we get into?
I
No, I'm just
know.
kidding.
I know. I was obviously your perfect child. So, I mean, I was pretty easy to
someone
raise.
wants
Let's
to
be
know
honest.
who your favorite is, and you can share.
I think you can share. Also, if favorite feel like too strong of a word, you can say who was the easiest to raise or who tested you the least.
you obviously are both still childless because you really would not have a favorite kid.
You
know,
obviously are still a child.
You might have one you love more than the rest, but not a favorite. No, that's not true. You love all your kids. They all have their strengths.
Yeah.
And, you learn a lot about, you can see why God loves all his kids. You know?
Yeah.
He does,
Yeah.
despite all their.
If you had to do it over again, would you still have 6? Do you feel like that's too many?
No, I think all of you were supposed to be in our family.
Oh.
And I think when you become a parent, you kind of get, I think your soul voice kind of says, hey, there's another one needs to come along.
Yeah.
And our last child, McCall, the youngest
Yeah.
daughter, I told Mom, I said, we need to have this child. We need a baby. There's somebody else who needs to be in our family.
Wow.
The men these days are not the
I know
same.
they're just not the same. I can't even imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I
a
think
man
you-
saying that, we need
Yeah.
to have a 5th child.
Yeah.
You might feel like your family's not complete, actually.
Yeah,
This is why I think religion is good for men.
it's true.
Because I feel like it provides depth. There's real depth, Dad.
Yeah.
Like to
Religion.
yes,
Yeah.
because I feel like that came from an impulse that's like our family is not complete, and like that I think that came from like a religious, like spiritual feeling,
Mhm.
and I think that in our godless world that's happening less.
Well, spiritual feelings, I think, are super important.
Yeah.
I would say even for somebody involved in a divorce, one of the things I was just thinking about is if you're involved in a divorce, I highly recommend that you get a faith.
Mm.
You find a faith and you find your own faith. You may
Mhm.
need to reach out to your maker and pray and all that. Pray about your life. I don't think anybody, I'm just going to say it, I don't think anybody should start a divorce or divorce somebody or go through with the divorce unless they feel like they could tell their maker, in effect, I did everything I could to save it.
Mhm.
Marriage is too important.
Mm.
And so I do think that in all phases of a divorce or whatever, you ought to be thinking about your life,
Yeah.
thinking about your kids, thinking about what's best. And so I do think the spiritual feelings are important. Another thing I think, get a friend. You need a good friend.
Mhm.
You need somebody who will yank you back and say, you're out of line.
What do you
You're
mean?
You're
Like,
like just give a reality check.
yeah.
So, I mean, I think you can get so angry at that person that you lose your objectivity. And
Yeah.
it's hard to be objective anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes me sad the way it seems like, people go from obviously being in love with people to hating them and vilifying them. And suddenly they're, instead of the best person in the world, the worst person in
Mhm.
the world. And like, what a horrible outcome of like that would be. I have a question though, going back to kind of like you've been practicing law for 33 years. Do you feel like people are getting divorced now more easily? Like, do you feel like people come to your office with less severe reasons or less having thought it through? It's like more impulsive. Do you feel like there's been any sort of shift?
I think you see people seeing divorce as the solution to their problems. And really,
Mm.
it's kind of like the old saying, and I didn't make this up, but it's like the woman who got married. And she thought by getting married, she'd be at the end of her problem. She didn't realize it. She was at the beginning end. And
Dark.
So I think there's a lot of truth to, and you think your divorce may solve your problems. You may just get a whole nother set of problems.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's important to really look at what's going on and what you're doing. And I don't think, by the way, just going to say it, I don't think, and I heard this conversation take place the other day. I don't remember who, but I think it's like, you get a divorce, your kids are going to suffer. No
Mhm.
way they're not going to suffer. Kids don't come out great out of a divorce. People are kidding themselves if they think they do. And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do it and you have to do it, decide what battles you're going to win
Yeah.
or what battles you need to win, what winning means to you. Stay in the game plan, make a plan, get an attorney you trust, and try not to get sidetracked from your plan. It's like Mike Tyson said, and I believe he's the one who said this. He says, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the nose. And, you got to stick with your plan, fight for what's important, and get through it as quick as you can. I mean, I heard some the other day who I represented for a while, and they went on, and they have spent now over $1 million in attorney fees.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's not, and they could have settled, and they will have less now.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
it's very, very, it's a very inefficient process, and it's something that you need. If you got to go through it, get in and get out.
Yeah.
Because all that money you're fighting over, you can spend a lot of it on the
Let
process.
alone years of your life.
Right. And I think the toll it takes on your kids to see you in that battle or, in that like state.
Your kids never get their childhood back.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you mean like, move to a place of peace, your kids can enjoy their childhood as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Well, yeah, I think so.
So it can be like the least disruptive.
I gotta say, just like, I don't want people to think who have gone through divorce in our audience that, like, we're trying to say though that, like, I just think that it's entirely possible, and I think we would all agree that it's better for kids to have divorced parents and live in two peaceful households than one volatile, chaotic household where the parents are at each other's throats, right? Like,
that is very true. And I would hate to judge any situation. I do my job. I want the best for my client. I would never normally not judge their situation.
Yeah.
A lot of times people do, if they are divorcing for a superficial reason, sometimes they will come back around.
And like get back together.
Yeah.
How often do you see that?
Not hugely often, but it happens.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
happens.
I think what Dad was saying earlier is just that like it's never going to be painless for your kids. Even
Correct.
if it's
They
never
they will be affected, but
Yes.
we're all affected by it.
right. And you're
things.
affected by parents who have a bad relationship and yeah.
I guess I have a question. Like, let's say there's a mom right now listening or a dad of like a 2-year-old. Is it better to get divorced when your kid is 2 than when they're 10? When they won't have any memory of a single household, and maybe they can kind of like avoid. It almost seems like better to do it earlier rather than later.
That may be.
Yeah.
Maybe.
This episode of Pop Apologist is brought to you by Booking.com. If you've ever walked into a gorgeous vacation rental and thought, I could totally host something like this is your sign. Listing your place on Booking.com opens the door to more guests, more bookings, and yes, more income. It's one of the most downloaded travel apps in the world, which means your property gets serious exposure. Over the past 25 years, Booking.com has helped more than 1.8 billion vacation rental guests find a place to stay. Why not help them find yours? And it's not just about reach. You're in full control. Your calendar, your rates, your rules. You can message guests, manage your finances, and run your rental like a pro. The best part? Getting started is actually easy, like under 15 minutes easy. And nearly half of new hosts get their first booking within a week. Already listed somewhere else? No problem. They'll help you import your info. Whether you want to earn more or grow a full-on hosting business, check out Booking.com today. For the bookings you've dreamed of, list your property on Booking.com.
You guys, we all have these recurring holidays, birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, so many holidays where we need to come up with a gift. And you know what? We're tired of the candles. We're tired of the flowers. People, they need something fresh and exciting. And I think a very cool gift is the gift of a masterclass subscription. I got this gift from my sister-in-law, and I took Alice Waters' course on cooking. It was so inspiring. It was such a beautifully done course. I learned so much about sourcing fresh ingredients. I cannot recommend either taking a masterclass yourself, learning from the greats, like learn to be a business tycoon like Kris Jenner,
or David Sedaris learned to write really, really well. There are so many incredible artists, entrepreneurs, business people on Masterclass who are delivering their pearls of wisdom just for you. Our listeners always get great discounts on Masterclass of at least 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/popapologists. See Masterclass's latest deal, at least 15% off at masterclass.com/popapologists. Masterclass.com/popapologists.
Okay, my next question for you, or another question from our listeners, is why did you choose family law?
You know, for me, I had 3 kids. When I took the bar exam, I was Lauren was our little tiny baby.
Yeah.
She was about the size of a large roast or meatloaf or whatever. No, I would come home from my job and I would sit at the bar and I'd lay Lauren up on my chest, watch a little TV. She was a little tiny thing back then. That's how long ago it was I was studying for the bar exam.
Crazy.
So I had 3 kids to support and I just kind of fell into it. It was something that I could, being on my own, I could get work, and we just never looked back.
Yeah.
Something I think that would be interesting for people to hear about is how you decided, like a little bit like later in life, to become a lawyer. It's not like you straight out of high school got your undergrad and then went to law school. You kind of like, what was it, 5 or 7 years later decided to go to law school?
I didn't start law school until I was 30. That's probably about 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
Late.
I actually don't know if I know this, but what was going to be your career before that?
I was thinking about financial planning.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, maybe
that field, and then I actually had the interview, and the guy said, "Well, the people who really making good money in our business are the lawyers." And I thought, "Oh, why not go to law school?" And then I got a scholarship to law school, and then my employer paid for a lot of it, and so I thought, let's go, let's do it.
Were you nervous at all about starting a new career, like with 3 kids?
It's funny. I had a kind of a quasi-government job, super secure, and I was, of course, nervous. It was probably good that you're nervous.
Yeah.
And first month, though, we made more money than I was taking home from my job.
Wow.
So we just didn't look back and kept moving forward.
Yeah.
One thing that always impresses me is how you went to law school like at night. Like you had a full-time job and you and mom had 3 kids and dad went to law school at night, and
I can't even fathom that.
You got to be young to do these things that take a lot of energy. I would actually study little cards when I was driving along. I could get it through about 30. We called them law in a flash. They were these little 3x4 cards or whatever, and they would have a question and answer, and I could drive my little Toyota Celica and hold the card. And this before the internet or whatever, but I could read my question and think it through while I'm driving and read the answer and know the answer. So we did a lot of that and listen to tapes, stuff like that. We did some tapes back in that day.
Crazy.
We could listen to law tapes, and you could do it. It was very doable.
I feel like also there might be someone listening, or at least me specifically, I didn't know what I was going to do in my late 20s, and starting any sort of like master's program or graduate program felt like so late.
Right.
But it's just so interesting, and because like for us, your career has been law almost 4 decades essentially, or 3.5. It's been a very long time. Even though you started later than most people, that hasn't been in any way like defining for your career. And so I just think that like life is so long.
Yeah.
And if there's something you want to do, even if you're 40 years old, I mean, you can still have a 30-year career.
People told me, "Oh, you'll be so old. You're way too old to start law school at age 30." And then I went to the school I was going to, and there were people in their 50s and 60s that were starting law school. I would tell anybody, if you think, it's very funny too, because I have to say, I don't know what, for some reason, the last 4 years, there has been such a huge increase in the demand for attorneys and psychologists.
Really?
Therapists and attorneys. It's hard to hire an attorney for your practice right now because there's such a huge demand. Litigation is increasing.
Yeah.
So I would say anybody, whatever you want to do, if you don't do it, you're still, and let's say it takes 3 years. If you don't do it, you're still going to be 3 years older when you haven't done it.
Yeah.
So I would say if you want, in law, I think law is a great profession to get into right now for anybody. I think there's less people in law school maybe than there were when I was there. There's a huge demand.
Yeah.
And so but whatever you want to do, life is not a dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do. And we got through it.
And it's really so true. Like that time is going to go by no matter what, whether you're working towards the thing you want to work toward or not. And it's crazy. I have a lot of friends who want to start brands or they want to start like some sort of influencing thing and they think, oh, like it's too late. And I just think that, yeah, like that time is going to pass regardless. Like when we started our
Yeah.
podcast and stuff, it's taken 5 years to really kind of get it off the ground.
Yeah.
But we could just be starting now,
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
anyway.
There's something tremendously exhilarating about chasing your dreams
Yeah.
and about having something to look forward to that you're excited about, a goal. I mean, setting goals and going after
Yeah.
them, thinking about what you're doing with your life at any age. Tell you right now, I mean, at my age, 67, I'm still really excited about a lot of things in my life. And I've got more mountains I want to climb, more things I want to do.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think there's no reason to not chase your dreams.
Yeah.
It's what really makes you feel alive.
Yeah.
It's the American spirit.
So
Pursuit of
true.
happiness.
I think too, Dad, you've always talked about like enjoying owning your own business
Right.
and being your own boss. And I think like I didn't, now that I kind of have two different, jobs, I just think that is something that I now experience working for the podcast and also my other job. But it really is it's really cool when you can be an entrepreneur, and set your own hours and all of
Control
that.
your own
A lot of times
Yeah.
it's longer hours, but at least you're working on something that your heart is in. I think it's a problem to be in a job that your heart's not in it.
Yeah.
Because, then I remember heard somebody say one time that you better like your job because you're doing it with the best hours of your life. And if you're unhappy in your work, then your whole outlook on life is going to be unhappy. You're going to be looking for the weekend all the time or complaining about your boss or whatever. And somebody said, be happy in your work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question, if you don't mind, back to, the nitty gritty. Someone wants to know how to make sure you get a fair prenup when you're not the rich one.
Get a decent attorney. Don't try and overreach. I think a fair prenup is segregating what you bring into the marriage. And then I think it's a terrible prenup for somebody to say, well, all my efforts moving forward still belong to me.
Yeah.
And, then if we divorce, I'll give you a little bit in the future, but you're not really sharing your life. If you're in a marriage, you're in a partnership.
Yeah.
And I had a case one time, and this I could talk about. Lady comes and talks to me, and she says, okay, I got this guy. He's a really neat guy. He's got really Midwestern values. She made about $4,000 a month at the time. And then this guy he made about 40 grand a month. And this was like several years ago. And she says, he's got this prenup. He wants me to sign this prenup. And basically it was that if we get divorced, everything I earn from now on and everything I brought in is still mine and you get what's yours. And he was making 10 times as much. And then he said, if we have a child, great, I'll pay child support, but I'll only give you $1,000 a month spousal support. And then he says, for the money we make, we'll spend about $8,000 a month, and you put your $4,000 in, and I'll put $4,000 of my 40 in. And I thought to myself, this is terrible.
Yeah.
So
Did she think it was a good deal, or did she just not really understand?
I think she was loving the guy and loving him. So then I called up the other attorney and I said, come on. So are you telling me that my client's got to put in her $4,000 and your client puts in her $4,000 and then he gets to keep all the rest of his money? I said, at minimum, let her keep what she makes and invest it for her own future. Your guy can pay the bills. And so then client goes home. After I talked to this attorney, we hadn't figured it out yet. And the guy says, you're supposed to have these Midwest marriages. He says, get out of my house to the woman.
No.
Stop.
Yeah.
Wow.
I actually think that was some of the best money she ever spent.
Yeah.
She dodged the bullet there.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Wow. Because you can really have some rose-colored glasses on if you're, wow.
Not
remember-
not what I call Midwestern values.
Yeah.
I remember I was dating this guy when I was 21 and he was 29 and he lived in Salt Lake and I was at BYU and Dad found out that we were splitting everything and you were just like not happy about that. You just thought that was just so tacky and just so inappropriate given that I was a college student and he was a professional And I mean, he was like, he did social work, so he wasn't necessarily rolling in it. But I just feel like you've always had the viewpoint that, like it's important for men to be generous and to provide and to take care. And I just think that's a very like chivalrous point of view. And anyway,
I don't think that's old school. I would feel really weird if I was ever on a date, which I'm not going to be, but if I ever was, I'd feel really weird to say, okay, here's my credit card, give me yours. We'll divide it. Here's my adding machine. We'll divide it evenly. That seems, it's like that saying goes, so many boys, so few men or whatever. Maybe it's the other way around. I do think, Lauren, I think of what I remember about you though, in your college days of dating.
Here we go.
I remember
it's gonna be good.
You had these guys and they wanted to, I will say out of all my kids, Lauren is, man, she could do anything she was going to do. She had all these careers in mind, cookie baker, coder, you name it. And so then
range.
But these guys, what's that other one?
Just range. She had a lot of range.
She had a lot of range of talents and wanting to do all these things she was thinking about doing. But you go out with these guys and it seemed like they wanted to go rock climbing with you.
Yeah.
And they were on a high level mountain rock climbing and you're down here. And I think I pulled one of these guys aside and said, hey, I'm concerned about my daughter's safety.
Yeah.
Like being able to take care of her.
Well, I thought she was pushing the envelope. I thought you were pushing the envelope because you're willing to please and try hard and all that. But I thought you were safety-wise, you might be pushing the envelope.
Like
some
literally
of these guys
with climbing.
on these rock climbing things.
Wow.
You even told me one time, you said, Dad, I was really scared. But we got through it somehow, but it was pretty dicey or whatever.
Yeah, I did a lot of like mountaineering types in Utah. And I think those were nice guys. I just, at the time, I was prioritizing hotness above all else, even physical safety. And, I learned my lesson though. I learned my lesson with those types. Yeah.
It was
quite interesting.
I appreciate the
the
kind words.
I don't know if your podcast remembers, but you two worked as servers at what was supposed to be the best restaurant in Provo. And you worked as servers.
It's true. We did.
And then at one point, the two of you rented a room together for this period of time. You even slept in the same big bed, and it was like, wow, they're really close, the sisters,
It's true.
Yeah,
and you guys have been really great together. I think, one thing I will say, for our kids, one of the greatest joys is that our family loves each other. Our kids all love each other. They don't need to be subpoenaed to be together or whatever. I think, everybody gets along, and it's really a joy. Mom and I think, feel pretty successful in that realm. And if we do have issues, which I know that you guys have had issues with each other, generally we get over it.
Yeah.
Or you get over it typically.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, we're very lucky in that way.
As a family, we want to be together.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. We're so lucky that way. Just going back to the servers thing, actually, I wanted to actually get to that. That's what was embarrassing. I remember telling you about this because we were servers and we were friends with all the people who worked kind of in like the nice restaurants where I went to college in Provo. And so when my boyfriend and I would go to like restaurants to eat, we would always put down 2 cards to split it exactly. And anyway, I think I told you this, but I said, can we just switch off? Because it's a little embarrassing for me.
Yeah.
Like it's just like we're really splitting it down the middle. And he said that if we do that, it'll never really be equal.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, you were not happy.
I remember this place I worked. I did work in the accounting department, but this guy, this supervisor or whatever, he was also going to law school. We might all go out, the 4 or 5 of us might all go out to lunch, and he would literally, when the bill came, he would take out his calculator and split it to the penny. Everybody paid their share. It was ridiculous. It was just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I do want you to answer this question because I think it'll be interesting, and you can probably give a politically correct answer, but which daughter were you most confident in when she flew the nest?
I think all of you guys have such great talents. I wasn't that confident in any of you. No, I think you all have great talents. The truth, I'm joking, but I think you all have great talents, and and demonstratedly so. I think it's a little surprising. I think I went into something that I knew I could make money at, and I think you girls have went into things that you're willing to just go to the mat and do what you really maybe like doing. Although I have to say, I think being a lawyer does fit my skill set.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a good thing for me. I think I found a profession that I liked and enjoyed. like I said before, if you're not in a profession or if you're not in something you enjoy, start thinking about getting into something else.
Yeah.
But I think all of you, it's wonderful to see you capitalize on your talents. Not one of you I noticed has wanted to follow me into the law.
I thought
And,
about it.
Lauren was going to. How many LSAT books
I
did
tried
you
to
get?
convince
A lot.
Lauren to do that, and
Yeah.
she
You would have been great.
sounds like she made the right decision.
Yeah. But then then I couldn't have done this with her. So.
That's true.
Mm.
I mean, I personally was not meant, I think, to be under a lot of pressure. It's just
Hey,
too much for me.
it's
Look
like
at
they
her.
say-
She doesn't not meant to be under.
And the reality is, I mean, it is kind of funny too. You hear that saying, the world's full of people who almost went to law school.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh.
Maybe they got smart. Maybe they were
No.
they were wise. But again, I think that's another thing. If you talk about, I'm just going to say it. I think people should seek guidance on who they marry.
Mm-hmm.
Try and listen to your soul voice. Listen to that little voice that we all have. People should seek guidance on what their job is, and if they, and that doesn't mean that you stay in the same job for your entire career. A lot of people change careers every 7 or 8 years. You may change careers 3 or 4 times in your career. You make a major. I've seen clients do amazing things to reinvent themselves.
Really?
They were in the mortgage business, and then that went flat. So I had this
Yeah.
one guy. Then he got into the credit repair and loan and helped people who owed a lot of money. There's a lot. Just capitalize on your talents. Try and be light on your feet. And, I still say, I mean, look at your level of happiness and excitement. If you're not happy, if you're not excited about your future, maybe reevaluate
Yeah.
what you're doing, because you got to be happy in what you're doing.
Yeah.
What
Wow.
careers do you see people going into that maybe don't, are in a marriage, do get divorced, do need to find a profession? What careers do you see a lot of people going into later in life who
I
have
will-
not been in the workforce?
I'll tell you this, if you've been in a long-term marriage, the court may often, if you go with a plan, you say, look, I want to get some really good employment. I've got a 2 or 3 year plan where I think I can make a really good living if I have time to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing I've seen people go into is nursing.
Yeah.
Really?
Another one, I think if you are a sharp person, paralegal.
Yeah.
I think those are both excellent careers. You can make a really good living doing them. I think sales, I think a super, super promising field, internet marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you can get really specific training in that, and you can make a good living
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you learn how to. So I think there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Yeah.
And, you can become a nurse in 15 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
Take an intensive program. That's
Right.
that's a registered nurse.
Yeah. And
Wow.
I mean, one of the careers that I think is like really great for someone who, I don't know, maybe wants to work in that profession, but maybe wants to do something a little bit less high pressure, is going into like aesthetics once they have that nursing degree, because you can make really good money
doing injectables.
like
and
doing
stuff. Yeah.
injectables, doing all that stuff for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
It's like Botox. And
Oh, Botox.
I'm curious, Dad, do you have any like crazy stories? Like, what's your wildest? A few wild client stories would be amazing.
Also, if you can, have you ever represented a celebrity? Obviously, you probably can't say the name, but have you ever represented a celebrity or any learnings from that?
I think it's really funny. I'll just say this. I think it's really funny how some of these attorneys, kind of the way they do their thing. So then I remember this in Orange County, this lady who claimed to be a celebrity attorney. And she did have some, I think she was not financially on the right side of this case, but I remember she came down, this is going on probably 7 or 8 years ago. She came down from LA or Beverly Hills to Orange County and representing this client. And she showed up and she was $750 an hour and her associate was $500 an hour. They were charging this guy $1,200 an hour. And we were on a really simple case. Nothing
Yeah.
that exciting, but she came up in a chauffeured limousine, and
Oh my gosh.
which in Orange County is just ridiculous, She
Yeah.
came up in a chauffeured limousine. It's just kind of funny. She was kind of presenting herself as the lawyer for the celebrity. And I went in her office, and she had a pair of boxing gloves in a frame, in her Beverly Hills office.
Oh my
As if
gosh.
she was representing Mike Tyson or whatever, But it's just kind of interesting the things that people do.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I will say one thing. I mean, I will say this for even if somebody wants to be a mom, family law is an awesome thing to get into because you can send your kids to school in the morning, go to court, you're out by noon. You can get home, get your kids from school, and you can be a mom and be and make a good money. I think that I was telling you that when I was trying to
Mhm.
convince you to go into law. But,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
No, it's good advice. I think that speaking to the celebrity attorney thing, I just think there's always a subset of people who just want to pay the most because they think whatever they're going to get the best quality.
Let me tell you, there's a lot of phoniness that goes on in the legal business. There's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember there was the one story about this client I had, and they had the husband passed on now, but he had a house full of these items in Laguna Beach, and they were like Louis the 14th clocks. He had supposedly like 15 of them, and all this artwork and all this stuff. And at one point in time, we got really caught up in this case, and we did pretty well in this case, but we got really caught up in it. And the other side of the family controlled this house and all these items. And one day we find out that they're loading up they were supposed to inventory the items and sell them all. One day we find out that they were going to take all the items off the property, and they had like 4 or 5 cars. And so
Wow.
I called all my office staff and I said, okay, get down here, everybody, get in your cars.
Wow.
So they had all these, and then they had all these cars and trucks pulling out of this estate.
With all the stuff
So
in it.
everybody took one car and followed it.
Stop.
No.
We were following him. And your mom and I, this is pretty funny. Your mom and I were in separate cars. Got her down there, and she was doing some staff work for me at the time. And so your mom and I are following this one truck laden full of stuff.
Oh my gosh.
We're following this, and we're literally we go from Laguna Beach to they go to the Costa Mesa Police Department, and they get right by the fairgrounds, and the police come out and they say, hey, these people are following us. And so the police come and talk to us. So yeah, we're following them. They've got a truck full of stolen property that belongs to my client.
Wow.
So anyway, the police says, well, you can follow them. Just be careful, So they're doing all these. So we're traveling up the freeway, and they're doing all these evasive maneuvers. They
Oh
would
my
like
gosh.
get off. They
A
would
heist.
yeah, it was like a heist. And I've got your mom on the phone, and I'm saying, okay, they're follow him. He's, there he goes. There he goes. And we're going back and forth, talking on our cell phones. We're driving. And anyway,
What
this is
happened?
quite
What happened?
we get all the way up to, I think Pasadena or someplace like that.
It's like an hour
And,
away.
And then we all pulled in this fast food place, and they're inside ordering their fast food. And we're just sitting there and watching them, and they get back in their car, and they pull out of the fast food place to back on the street. And then this huge van pulls in front of us.
No.
Yeah.
And you lost them?
We lost them.
Oh
Oh my
my
gosh.
And
gosh.
this is right now this is probably, it seemed like it was really, really late in the evening by this time, but I don't think it was that late. But anyway, we knew where the stuff went. And
Yeah.
then the funny thing is, we literally went down to that place where it went and inventoried, we later saw all the stuff. It all came out. It all worked out.
Wow.
How did you know
But it was
where it
just
went?
crazy stuff. Well, I don't know. We kind of had a hunch where it was going.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
here's what I would think. Crazy things people do for money, the crazy stuff they will pull. I think there's a real element of phoniness in all this money. I don't think you can take it with you. I don't think it's the source of happiness
Mhm.
Yeah.
in any family. It might make your life easier, but I think to cheat people out of money, that becomes ingrained in your character.
Yeah.
That
Mm.
act does. And I think that happiness and being able to look yourself in the mirror, this person who was on the other side, she was a very unhappy person. And in the end, the funny thing about it is in the end, it really didn't work out for her.
Mm.
All the cheating these people do, there's a lot of people, a lot of cheating out there financially. And I don't think it doesn't work out
Yeah.
often.
Right.
They're miserable people. And you can, I'm telling you right now, you get in a divorce, your spouse is in business for themselves or whatever, you're not really involved in it. You're never going to find all the money they hide. You're never going to figure all that out. It's not going to do it. Spouses have been hiding money from each other for years.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect world. Go on with your life.
Yeah.
Karma eventually catches up
Yeah.
to people.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's good advice.
Sage words.
I mean,
For
we had,
sure.
even in the neighborhood we moved into, we moved into this nice neighborhood, Laguna Niguel, and it seemed like people were really putting on airs financially. They were really, and there was one family on our street that left in the middle of the night. We never saw them again.
For real.
For real, on the street that we lived on. And
A
he was
family.
saying, I mean, you guys were really young at the time, but there's a lot of phoniness out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, that's,
Yeah.
No, it's true. It's so true. And I think that Chandler and I talk about this, or we're talking about it. I think we were not raised in a family that was obsessed with status. So we were not raised in a way that was like, it's really important that you go to an Ivy League school and you get into, you get this sort of job so you can send your kids to this sort of private school. Like, I think one of the things that I didn't even know that world really existed, where a lot of people, I think this can be more of an East Coast sensibility, where there's just a lot of judgment of people based on
pedigree.
A lot of pedigree, like, oh, what school did you go to? What school did your dad go to? Oh, you're the first person in your family. Okay, so that's not as good as like from a family where everyone's gone to the nice private school and then the nice university and all that stuff. And I just think that like all of that stuff is so shallow and it's so unimportant. And I just think it's such a blessing to be raised without even a knowledge that people care about that, because it's silly pressure that then kids will put on themselves.
And it just, it frames your whole way of looking at the world in a really like kind of archaic way.
People invariably, I think a lot of them, they want to do their class. They want to show they're higher or better. So it's probably, I remember this one actor came to my school. He said, hey, don't worry about money. Don't worry about, you got to have money. But he said, the greatest happiness you can have in your life is having one person you really love who you build a life with. And that's the great happiness in life.
Yeah, for sure.
Agreed.
Well, on that note, you guys, it's so great to have our dear dad back again. I would say, where can people find you? But I don't think you're looking for Instagram followers. But hopefully we'll have you back for a third time at some point, please.
I have about 25 followers.
Thanks so much for being here, Dad. We love you so much.
I love you too. You guys are awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pluto TV has all the shows and movies you love streaming for free. That means laughter is free with gut-busting comedies like The Neighborhood, Boomerang, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Bueller. Mystery is free with countless cases to crack from Criminal Minds, Tracker, and Matlock.
I'm a lawyer, like the old TV show.
And thrills are free with heart-pumping hits like The Walking Dead and Pulp Fiction. Correctamundo. Feel the free Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
Clocking out of the Content Factory. I'm Tucker.
And I'm Becca. And this is a podcast where we take a break from climbing the absolute corporate ladder that is being a TikToker.
That's right. This is the most corporate podcast for the least corporate girlies.
In this pod, we're in the break room with you guys, our gorgeous, gorgeous coworkers.
And you may be wondering, what goes on in the Content Factory?
Give us the agenda, Tucker.
Well, each episode starts with a performance review,
where we talk about what's going on in the week, content we're making, DMs we're getting.
A little peek behind the curtain of the content creator life. We also will be doing an HR report,
where we ask you guys during the week, what is some workplace drama you got going on?
And we'll end each episode with a rapid fire and hire.
Things we want to get rid of and things we want to keep.
For example, Becca, what do you want to fire this week?
My IBS.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And before we go, we have some action items for you.
Please complete by end of day. Follow, rate, and review the Content Factory wherever you get your podcasts.
And as always,
we'll circle back soon.